And on the 24th of the month, the sons of Israel gathered with fasting and in sackcloth, and with ashes on their head. And the sons of Israel were separated from every foreign son. And they stood and declared their sins and the acts of lawlessness of their fathers. And they kept their stance and read in the book of the law of the Lord their God. And they were declaring to the Lord, and doing obeisance to the Lord their God. And Jesus the son of Kadmiel, Shechaniah the son of Sarabiah, sons of Canani, stood at the ascent of the Levites, and cried out with a loud voice to the Lord their God. And the Levites, Jesus and Kadmiel, said, Stand up, bless the Lord our God, from everlasting and to everlasting. And they will bless your glorious name, and exalt it with every blessing and praise. And Esdras said, You yourself are the Lord alone. You made heaven and the heaven of heaven, and all their position, the earth and all that is on it, the seas and all that is in them. And you give everything life, and the armies of the heavens do obeisance to you. You are the Lord God. You made a choice in Abram, and brought him out of the country of the Chaldeans, and made for him a name, Abraham. And you found his heart faithful before you, and made a covenant with him to give him and his seed the land of the Canaanites, and the Kettites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Jebusites, and the Girgashites, and you have established your word, because you are righteous. And you saw the humiliation of our ancestors in Egypt, and heard their cry at the Red Sea. And you gave signs in Egypt against Pharaoh and against all his servants, and against all the people of his land, because you knew that they acted insolently against them. And you made a name for yourself as this day. And you broke asunder the sea before them, and they passed through in the midst of the sea on dry land. And those who pursued them closely you threw into the depths, like a stone in violent water. And by day you led them with a pillar of cloud, and during the night with a pillar of fire, to give them light on the way in which they should go in it. And you came down upon Mount Sinai, and spoke to them from heaven, and gave them straightforward judgments, and laws of truth, and ordinances, and good commandments. And you made known your holy Sabbath to them. You commanded them commandments and ordinances and law by the hand of your slave Moses. And you gave them bread from heaven in their famine, and you brought water for them out of the rock for their thirst. And you told them to go in to possess the land to which you stretched out your hand to give them. And they and our fathers behaved arrogantly and stiffened their neck, and did not listen to your commandments. And they refused to obey, and were not mindful of your wonders, that you performed with them. And they stiffened their neck, and they gave a beginning to return to their slavery in Egypt. And you are the God who forgives sins, is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and very gracious, and you did not forsake them. Furthermore, they made a cast metal bull calf for themselves, and said, These are the gods who brought us up out of Egypt, and committed great provocations. And you in your great mercies did not forsake them in the wilderness. You did not turn away from them the pillar of cloud for leading them on the way by day, and the pillar of fire to lighten for them the way in which they should go in it during the night. And you gave your good spirit to instruct them, and did not withhold your manna from their mouth, and gave them water in their thirst. And 40 years you sustained them in the wilderness. There was no lack of anything for them. Their clothes did not grow old, and their sandals did not tear. And you gave them kingdoms, and allotted them peoples. And they took possession of the land of Sihon, king of Heshbon, and the land of Og, king of Bashan. And you multiplied their sons like the stars of heaven, and brought them into the land about which you told their fathers, and they possessed it. And you wiped out before them the inhabitants of the land, and the Canaanites, and gave them and their kings and the peoples of the land into their hands, to do with them as was pleasing before them. And they captured lofty cities, and took possession of homes filled with all sorts of goods, hewn cisterns, vineyards, and olive orchards, and every sort of fruit tree in abundance. And they ate and were filled, and became fat and were nourished on your great goodness. And they changed and departed from you, and cast your law behind their body, and killed your prophets, who had warned them to turn them back to you, and they committed great provocations. And you gave them into the hand of their oppressors, and they oppressed them. And they cried out to you in their time of oppression, and you heard from your heaven, and through your great mercies you gave them deliverers and delivered them from the hand of their oppressors. And after they rested, they returned to doing what is evil before you, and you abandoned them to the hands of their enemies, and they ruled among them. And again they cried to you, and you listened from heaven and rescued them by your many mercies. And you repeatedly warned them in order to turn them to your law. And they did not listen, but sinned against your commandments and judgments, by doing of which a person shall live by them. And they presented a disobedient back, and stiffened their neck, and did not listen. And many years you lasted with them, and repeatedly warned them by your Spirit, by the hand of your prophets, and they did not give ear. And you gave them into the hand of the peoples of the land. And in your many mercies you did not make an end of them, and forsake them, because you are strong and merciful and compassionate. And now, our strong, great, mighty, and awesome God, in keeping the covenant and your mercy, let all the hardship not be treated lightly before you, which found us in our kings and our rulers and our priests, and our prophets and our fathers, and among all your people from the days of the kings of Assur, even until this day. And you are just in all that has come upon us, for you have dealt truthfully, and we did wrong. And our kings and our rulers and our priests and our fathers did not practice your law, and did not heed your commandments or your testimonies, about which you repeatedly warned them. And even they, in your rule and in your great goodness that you bestowed on them, and in the broad and rich land that you set before them, were not subject to you, and did not turn from their wicked habits. Behold, we are slaves today, and the land that you gave to our fathers to eat its fruit belongs to the kings whom you gave over us, because of our sins, and they have power over our bodies, and over our animals as seems best to them, and we are in great affliction. And by all these things we are setting forth a pledge of faith, and are writing it down, and all our rulers, our Levites, our priests are sealing it. And over those affixing seals were Nehemiah son of Hakaliah, and Zedekiah son of Sariah, and Azariah and Jeremiah. And the rest of the people, the priests, the Levites, the gatekeepers, the singers, the Nethinim, and every one who adheres to the law of God from the people of the land, their wives, their sons, their daughters, every one who knows and understands, were prevailing against their brothers, and they cursed them and entered into a curse and an oath to go in God's law, which was given by the hand of Moses the slave of God, to observe and to do all the commandments of the Lord and his judgments, and in order not to give our daughters to the peoples of the land. And we will not take their daughters for our sons, and the peoples of the land who bring in merchandise and any sale on the Sabbath day to sell, we will not buy from them on the Sabbath and on a holy day, and we will release the 7th year and a claim of every hand. And we will lay on ourselves the commandments to charge ourselves yearly 1/3 of a didrachma for the service of the house of our God, for the loaves of the presence, and the sacrifice of perpetuity, and for the whole burnt offering of perpetuity of the Sabbaths, of the new moons, for the feasts and for the sacred things, and the items for sin to make atonement for Israel, and for the projects of the house of our God. And we, the priests and the Levites and the people, have cast lots for the assignment of carrying wood, to bring it for the house of our God, for the houses of our paternal families, for seasons of the times, year by year, to burn on the altar of the Lord our God, as it is written in the law, and to bring the first products of our land, and the first products of the fruit of every tree, year by year, to the house of the Lord, and to the house of our God for the priests who minister in the house of our God, the firstborn of our sons and of our livestock, as it is written in the law, and the firstborn of our cattle and of our flocks. We will bring the first fruit of our grain, and the fruit of every tree, wine and oil for the priests to the treasure chamber of the house of God, and the tithes of our soil for the Levites, and the Levites themselves are collecting the tithes in all the cities of our service, and the priest, the son of Aaron, shall be with the Levite in the tithe of the Levite, and the Levites shall bring up the tithe of the tithe to the house of our God, to the treasure chambers at the house of God, because the sons of Israel and the sons of Levi shall bring into the storerooms the first fruits of the grain and wine and the oil, and the holy vessels and the priests that minister, and the gatekeepers and the singers are there, and we will not neglect the house of our God. And the rulers of the people lived in Jerusalem, and the rest of the people cast lots to bring 1 out of 10 to live in Jerusalem, the holy city, and 9/10 remained in the other cities. And the people blessed all the men who willingly offered to live in Jerusalem. And these are the rulers of the province who lived in Jerusalem, and in the cities of Judah. They lived, a man on his holding, in their cities. The Levites in the days of Eliasib, Joada, and Joah, and Johanan, and Idua, were recorded as the chiefs of paternal families and priests in the reign of Darius the Persian. Sons of Levi were chiefs of paternal families, having been recorded in the book of the words of the days, even until the days of Johanan, son of Elisu. And the rulers of the Levites, Hasabiah and Sarabiah, and Jesu, and sons of Kadmiel, and their brothers were over against them, to sing hymns and to praise, by the commandment of David the man of God, class with class, when I gathered the gatekeepers, in the days of Joachim, son of Jesus, son of Josedek, and in the days of Nehemiah, and Esdras was the priest and the scribe. And at the rededications of the wall of Jerusalem, they sought the Levites in their places, to bring them to Jerusalem to celebrate the rededications, and the merriment, and Thodatha, and with odes, while playing the cymbal and harps and chinyras. And the sons of the singers, and some from the region that circles around Jerusalem, and some from villages, and some from the fields gathered, because the singers in Jerusalem built the villages for themselves. And the priests and the Levites were purified, and they purified the people, the gatekeepers and the wall. And they brought the rulers of Judah up onto the wall, and appointed 2 great ones concerning praise, and went through to the right on the wall of dung. And after them went Hosea and half the rulers of Judah, and Azarias, Esdra, and Mesullam, Judah and Benjamin, and Samias and Jeremiah, and some of the sons of priests with trumpets. Zacharias, son of Jonathan, being a son of Samiah, being a son of Mattathiah, being a son of Micaiah, being a son of Zakur, being a son of Asaph. And his brothers were Samiah and Oziel, Galoliah, Maaiah, Nathanael, and Judas, Hanani, so that they might sing with the songs of David the man of God. And Esdras the scribe was in front of them, at the gate of Ain, opposite them. And they went up to the stairs of the city of David, in the ascent of the wall above the house of David, and as far as the gate of water in the east. And concerning praise, the second one meeting them went out, and I followed it, and half of the people were on the wall above the tower of the Tenorim, even as far as the broad wall, and above the gate of Ephraim, and to the Isiana gate, and to the fish gate, and at the tower of Hanamiel, and from the tower of Mia, even as far as the sheep gate. And they stood in the gate of the guard. And the 2 of praise stood in the house of God, and I and half of the generals with me, and the priests Eliakim, Maasaias, Benjamin, Micaias, Elionai, Zacharias, Hananias, and Samias, and Eleazar, and Ozias, and Joanna, and Malchias, and Ilam, and Izur, and the singers were heard and reviewed. And they offered great sacrifices on that day and rejoiced, because God made them rejoice greatly, and their wives and their children rejoiced, and the joy in Jerusalem was heard from far away. And on that day they appointed men over the treasure chambers for stores, for the first fruits, and for the tithes, and for the things collected in them, for the rulers of the cities, portions for the priests and for the Levites, because there was joy in Judah, both over the priests and over the Levites that stood. And they guarded the guard stations of the house of their God, and the guard stations for purification, and the singers and the gatekeepers, according to the commandments of David and his son Solomon. Because in the days of David, Asaph from the beginning was the first of those that sing both hymn and praise to God. And in the days of Zerubbabel, all Israel was giving portions for the singers and the gatekeepers, the rule of the day for its day, and were sanctifying for the Levites, and the Levites were sanctifying for sons of Aaron. On that day there was read from the book of Moses in the hearing of the people, and there was found written in it that Ammonites and Moabites should not enter in the assembly of God forever, because they did not meet the sons of Israel with bread and water, and hired Balaam against him to curse him. And our God turned the curse into a blessing. And it happened when the people heard the law, and every person of mixed race in Israel was separated. And before this Eliasib the priest, while living in the treasure chamber of the house of our God, being next of kin to Tobias, also prepared for him a large treasure chamber. And there they had previously put the manna, and the frankincense, and the vessels, and the tithe of grain, and of the wine, and of the oil, a commandment of the Levites, and of the singers, and of the gatekeepers, and the first fruits of the priests. And in all this I was not in Jerusalem, because in the 32nd year of Arthasasta, king of Babylon, I went to the king. And after the end of the days, I made a request from the king, and went to Jerusalem. And I gained understanding in the wrong that Eliasib had done for Tobias, to prepare a treasure chamber for him in the court of the house of God. And it seemed very bad to me, and I threw all the vessels of the house of Tobias out from the treasure chamber. And I spoke, and they cleansed the treasure chambers. And I brought back there the vessels of the house of God, the manna and the frankincense. And I knew that the portions of the Levites had not been given, and the Levites and the singers who were doing their task had fled, a man to his field. And I remonstrated with the generals and said, Why was the house of God forsaken? And I gathered them together and set them in their station. And all Judah brought the tithe of the wheat, and the wine, and the oil into the storehouses upon the hand of Selemiah, the priest, and Zadok the scribe, and Phadiah from the Levites. And upon their hand was Hanan son of Zakkur, he being son of Mathaniu, because they were considered faithful to them to distribute to their brothers. Remember me, O God, in this, and let not the mercy I did in the house of the Lord God be wiped out. In those days I saw in Judah people treading winepresses on the Sabbath, and bringing in sheaves of grain, and loading them on donkeys, and also bringing into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day wine and grapes and figs and all kinds of burdens. And I warned them on their day of sale. And they settled in, bringing fish and selling all kinds of merchandise, on the Sabbath to the sons of Judah, and in Jerusalem. And I remonstrated with the free sons of Judah, and said to them, What is this evil matter that you are doing in profaning the Sabbath day? Did not our fathers act in this way? And our God brought all these terrible things upon them, and upon us, and upon this city. And you are adding wrath to Israel to profane the Sabbath. And it happened when the gates in Jerusalem settled down before the Sabbath, and I spoke, and they shut the gates. And I spoke so that they would not be opened until after the Sabbath. And I set some of my servants over the gates, so that people would not carry burdens on the Sabbath. And they all spent the night and made sales outside Jerusalem once and twice. And I warned them and said to them, Why do you spend the night in front of the wall? If you do so again, I will extend my hand against you. From that time on they did not come on the Sabbath. And I told the Levites who were purifying themselves and were coming, guarding the gates to keep the Sabbath day holy, Remember me for these things, O God, and spare me according to the fullness of your mercy. And in those days I saw Judeans, who had set up women of Aziota, Ammonites, Moabites, and half of their sons speak Azoshan, and do not know how to speak Judean. And I contended with them, and cursed them, and beat the men among them, and pulled out their hair, and I made them take an oath by God. If you give your daughters to their sons, and if you take some of their daughters for your sons. Did not Solomon king of Israel sin in this way? And among many nations there was no king like him, and he was beloved to God, and God gave him as king over all Israel. And foreign women ruined this man. And shall we listen to you to do all this evil, to be faithless with our God to set up foreign women? And one of the sons of Joadah, the son of Elisub, the great priest, he was the son-in-law of Sanballat the Horonite, and I chased him away from me. Remember them, O God, because of their close kinship to the priesthood, and the covenant of the priesthood and the Levites. And I cleansed them from everything foreign, and I established classes for the priests and Levites, a man according to his task. And the gift of the wood carriers, in seasons of the times, and in the Bakuria. Remember me, O our God, for goodness.